Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's focus on our Blacklister this episode. It is her name's originally Michaela, but she just shortens it to Michael, as in kind of being the Archangel Michael, because she is the Avenging Angel. She rights wrongs for people. Basically, there's like a forum online where people pour out their prayers, and she siphons through it, and she picks out prayers, and she answers them, because she's trying to get retribution for people because she wasn't able to get retribution for herself. Basically, and it was like in the 80s where it's a thing of like, right, you're an unwed mother, that brings shame upon the family, and just people will look at you a certain way. So she basically got put in a place until, like, it's one of those facilities until she gave birth. She wasn't let out of that place, and she was forced to adopt give her child up for adoption. So when she was wronged in the past and no one was there to be her avenging angel, so now she's there for everyone else. The guy at the beginning, killing him because he screwed his best friend / partner out of like his IP, and now that guy gets his IP back, plus gets to run the entire business. I thought was interesting because, well, Harold was going through stuff at the time, which we'll get to that later on, but Reddington tried to reach out to him, so had no choice but to talk to Dembe, because Reddington has Hetty over because he's got something he's got planned at the same time that he's like, cool, I'm going to, he needs Hetty's help with something, but it would mean screwing over Oleg, Oleg lets them get like 19%, 19 million off the top of like that 19% is 19 million of like the 100 million that he's making, and they get a slice of that pie. So Hetty's like, do not screw up this. He's like, no, I'm not going to try and piss him off. Also, the whole like him, Alicia, and Mercedes situation, I think that's so adorable because it's like, oh yeah, she plants stuff. It's because like Hetty's like, oh, this is so good. Like, what is it? It's like, yeah, she's good at finding the stuff that's good for you, while also removing the bad stuff from your life type of situation, which can include people. But I love that they did eventually go to like Oleg's place. But it's like, yeah, he's here like once a week in a year. He'll go to this place, so he won't even miss. He won't even know it's going. So we won't even threaten our relationship with Oleg. But his son Alexei was there, and so Reddington, being a master manipulator he is, oh, it's so good. Just being like, oh man, I had to sell your villa. Oh, that sucks. Property, I mean, like, obviously, like, that's a good investment. So, like, you losing that is kind of a shame. I mean, look at this work of art. Oh, it could be worth so much. He's like, I mean, just to get the meeting could be 500,000. It's like, you think it could fetch for a minute? He's like, I love it. It's like Inception of making it like, yeah, I'm putting it out there. Rather than it just coming from me, I'm making it your idea to potentially sell it. So it's like, is this painting worth $1 million? It's like, no, like Oleg got it from like a hotel in Maui, but it actually hides a painting that was stolen by the Nazis, and it belongs to a family. The person in particular, I think, was dead, but their daughter is alive. And it's like, oh, how old is the daughter? Oh, she's 90. She's the lead singer of a death metal band. I was like, oh, how old is she? She's 90 something. I was like, that's cool. I'm like, that's it. Because you never see too many large age discrepancies amongst band members like that. To me, the one that will always come to my mind is Our Last Night. Trevor and Matt are brothers, but Trevor was like, 14 when he was like the lead vocalist of the band, which is crazy when you go back to like their earlier music, and just like, it's just like night and day. It's crazy. It's like, yeah, the kid was like 14 when they started as Our Last Night, and now it's like, yeah, he's like probably my age, if not a little older, maybe. I think I might be actually older than him, but like he's in his like 20s now. But it's like, it made me think of that, because I mean, there might be like older, like I know there have been some like age discrepancy, like someone might be a little bit older than, but it's just like a 14-year-old like being like the screamer, the lead vocalist of a post-hardcore like melodic like hardcore band, or whatever you want to label them as. So it's just interesting. That's the only one I'm aware of, but there might be other instances. But an age discrepancy like that, I don't know, her being 90, being the lead singer of a death metal band, I was wondering, but that's still pretty sick. But also, like, we got a little taste of the music, and it's like, right, because it's actually, like, because her name's Ada, it's actually really, it's a tragic story, but there's beauty in the aftermath of it, because basically she survived because the Nazis found out she could sing, and that's the only thing that kept her alive. So she had to sing for the people that murdered her family, and she sings now because like it's her way of being a part of a death metal band is to speak to the youth. You know, it's because that song, that her voice kept her alive, and she kind of wants to pass that on to the next generation, this younger generation, and she found an outlet that would allow her to. I'm like that, like there's a tragedy behind it, but there's such beauty in the like what she wants to do with. I'm like, that's freaking sick. That's an amazing, you know. But obviously, she's talking about like the Holocaust and just her experience. Like I said, there's beauty from that tragedy, you know. So I just thought that was kind of a neat like background story, but like that's why what Reddington was trying to get from Oleg, because like Oleg has showed it off to him like years ago, because like he always like showing off shiny stuff, but then he always loses interest. So like Oleg probably doesn't even think about it. So it's like, right, I returned that fake painting and just put it back up, and Oleg probably doesn't even remember the paintings. The real painting was like behind it. He doesn't care anymore. He moves on. So it's not that big of a deal, and you know. Oleg will never be the wiser. Once again, he doesn't go there that much. So hopefully that doesn't turn into an issue later on, but we'll see. I even love that, Reddington's like, yeah, he's open-minded, but it's just kind of like because of the death metal angle, because he's a newbie to the death metal, and he's just like, yeah, which I am too. Like, I listen to some death metal here and there. Like, I think they're considered. I think they were considered. Like, I wrestled a bear once. I've listened to some songs. I think they're considered death metal. Prior to that, like Oceano was like probably like the other death metal band that I've listened to. I don't listen to much death metal. Not my cup of tea. Never has been. But you know, I'm more of a post-hardcore metalcore dude. That's kind of my range. But I mix in some pop punk and alternative as well. Tangents and all that aside. So I get it, like the apprehension of it. I love that like Hetty's a big death metal fan. I'm like, oh, that's sick, dude. But nevertheless, like I said, but this Avenging Angel, circling back to her because I went on that huge tangent. I mean, it's all connected, but the Avenging Angel, her next target this episode was going after the lead like guy who runs a hospital and like a billionaire. Well, it turns out this billionaire used his influence. He paid off the hospital to give them, like, right, give you the money to make a pediatric wing, but he gets to jump the top of the list. So the guy, William, who's supposed to get the heart, this billionaire, Derek, got in its place, and that's what the Avenging Angel is doing. Because, like, getting that painting back, it was always supposed to go back to Ada, but because, Denbei and Reddington have had a run-in, have heard whispers of her before. But I think it was in Burgess is when they first heard about this. This is one of those like things that she was never able to do, but Reddington was able to do it for her. And so, you know, and I love that. It's just like, right, she's like, this is really mine. And he's like, yeah, it always was yours. It's just fell into other hands for 81 years. Because it's like, yeah, like, oh, she's like, how did you get it? He's like, much like how it was originally, you know, I stole it too. You know, like someone stole it from you and I stole it back. But right, this Avenging Angel plans on opening up Derek and giving the heart that was supposed to go to William in the first place, give it to him. It's like, right, he was supposed, like, he waited on for his time, and, because I didn't know that's how, I wonder is that how it always works? I didn't know that's how the donation for organs, like, worked. It's like, it's a vicinity type of thing, like, it's based on where you are on the list, but also like which hospital gets the donation of like the respective organ. So because William lived in the radius of that hospital that got the heart, because obviously like when a person dies or whatever and that heart is up for grabs, like I guess whatever hospital that heart ended up at, and that happened to be in William's radius, but it wasn't like Derek lived on like another side of the city, so he shouldn't have got it. But because, you know, and once again, that's the Avenging Angels issues, like the rich and powerful take advantage of those. You know, so there's a very, like, you can definitely draw comparisons to the whole like leverage thing of, you know, bad guys make the best good guys, because it's like, right, she plays a little bit of a dark Robin Hood type of role in this, where it's like, right, I will use whatever violence, murder, like, yeah, I'm willing to put people down. Oh, cool. So I made you sign a confession. I won't kill you, but I'll fling you off the railings to make it look like you committed suicide. So, and even then she was going to say like, oh, like, I'm going to make it look like you had a heart attack to like make it seem like that's how Derek died. She initially shows up because she got interested in the painting that because that ended up drawing her out. But what caught Reddington's attention is the moment Harold brought up Derek, a billionaire. It's like, right. And so he steps in. And I actually think it's such an interesting, like, position, like, you know, a juxtaposition between the two of them. They are both similar yet different. You know, he's like, oh, like, we are way different. But it's like, she's an avenging angel. But for Reddington, it's like, you see the world in black and white. Reddington sees and recognizes, and a lot of time lives in that gray. Because it is the thing of like, yes, there are abhorrent people. There are terrible people that should get what they deserve. But Derek, yes, he is an abhorrent person because of what he did to William. But you can't say that he is all evil. Because, yes, he might have been selfish in why he did it. But that pediatric wing he helped build saved so many children's lives. So people aren't just good or evil. They can be both. People are complicated, you know. There is a balance of it in every one of us. I mean, look at her. She's going about evil because she thinks it's good. It's like, oh, you're choosing the rich over the poor. He's like, no, I'm not. Like, the fact is, I'm just able to recognize, I don't see things in such a binary lane like you do of things just being black and white. There's so much more in that beautiful shade of gray. And so it's like, right, I'm not going to let William die either. Like, what blood type are you? Oh, negative. And it's like, oh, about the same size too. And she's like, you're avenging, even if you do this, your avenging angel will come for you. And Reddington's like, yeah, I hope so. I hope it just doesn't deter my avenging angel from ever catching up to me. Because I think when Reddington's like, yeah, when my time's up, there are plenty of people that have every reason to get a revenge against me. And he kills the avenging angel, which is like, you know, because Reddington understands. It's like, hey, something important was taken from you. I mean, he knows retribution. He made sure as hell to put down the guy that killed Liz. Like, immediately, bam, bam, bam. I mean, he's made it pretty clear, like, time and time again, like, he is always, like, he has always played an avenging angel role in many different regards. But he figured he'd take advantage of this situation of like, right, he didn't give this case to them thinking it was going to turn out this way. He had his own role to play in things, but it wasn't until Harold brought up Derek that it made him decide to handle things this way. Because it's like, cool, I could keep Derek alive and have someone that powerful at me. Yeah, you know, you always want to take advantage of situations, so. But it's still like, once again, like, Reddington does bad, but there is some gray, because look what he did. He even though he did some bad today, he returned that painting to Ada, and what that meant to her is like, it at the very least, it could be sentimental recompense, you know. It doesn't make up for everything, but what it symbolizes, you know, what it means to her on a sentimental level, like, that matters, that he went to it to get this. So I think that in itself speaks volumes. And I love that it's just like, yo, the problem he's like with the avenging angel with Michaela, it's like, she judged people on their worst day. And he's like, and Harold's like, shouldn't we be? He's like, no, I think people should be judged on every other day. Which I thought that was such an interesting perspective on it, because it's like, because people are complicated. Like, just because you made a mistake, like, every other day you should be judged by that. If you continue to be a piece of crap on every other day, sure. But, you know, when you've done, and that's such a complicated thing too, because it's like, sometimes there's some things that are just so horrible on your worst day, but, you know, I think that just comes down from person to person. It's just like, you know, makes you wonder, in Reddington's eyes, what is his worst day? And what does his other days mean about him? I don't know. And I think that's for him to know, and no one else really know. And really, I mean, it's so subjective to know, like, where on the scales and where in the lanes of all of this, that this spectrum that Reddington would fall in a grand scheme of things. I think that's so interesting. I skipped over it, but I meant to talk about it. Like, it is that awkwardness between Reddington and Dembe. It's like, how did we get here? It's like, oh, it's because of, you know, is it because of me arresting Vesco? It's like, Vesco was a disappointment, but what was he like? Brasilia, that was a tragedy. He's like, you want to talk about it? I'm like, but obviously whatever it is, like Reddington to me is like, no. I was like, so whatever that is, I guess led to why Dembe stepped away. Because there's still that time frame of like, it's 2 years. A lot can change in that time, but you know, they're not in sync like they used to. Like, we're kind of at odds. Like, he's always had Dembe by his side, but it's almost like, I think it's almost, because at least with the Liz situation, I think he knew where she stood and that was okay and he was fine with that. But like, Dembe has always been by his side, and so it's a little bit different. So like, him choosing to kind of be against him, kind of like, not that I have your trust in certain regards, because we are friends. We are old friends, but it's also like the complications of like, you've chosen your loyalty, that being the FBI. So there's that lane of things. Some other complications that come up during this episode is Wrestler having to, he needs clean piss, and he's off the drugs, but he doesn't know if his system's clean enough, and this is a one-shot because his test results already came back inconclusive. If they come back inconclusive again, it's a done deal. He's like, I need this job, and he needs Park's help, but she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to threaten my job. He's like, right, I shouldn't have bothered you with it. But at the end, she does help him out. He's like, thank you. He's like, don't thank me. Like, I'm the guy that came in that was like, right, Andy was my best bud. No, I think his name was Andy. The dude Andy was like, yeah, like, he was my oldest friend. Yeah, he was a liar and a cheat, but still, at the end of the day, I thought it was interesting. She was like, I won't just sue you if this screws me over. I'll kill you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I love that the way he had to go, like, the doctor's like, yeah, this is how it works. And Russell's like, do we really have to? Because he has to, they're going to be watching you this time. So he basically had to put a catheter inside Wrestler. And he's like, he's like, dude, I've been doing this for like 10 years for like sports people. And they will do anything when they know that this could be the determining factor on whether or not they get that next big paycheck or not. So it's, comes down to how far you're willing to go. Are you willing to go this far? It seems like Wrestler is. So, and I love the guy's like, hey, I got like a meeting with the Joint Chiefs in like 4:15. So I know, you got to hurry this up, even though like, I know it's got to be hard watching me watching you pee. But at first I was like, because it's Parks, like, I was like, are we going to find out that she's actually pregnant? I'm about to say like, that would kind of screw the pooch for Wrestler. But I was like, no, it turns out everything's good. Like, she passed, but it seems like she might be sick. Like, there might be a tumor situation going on. And so it's like, oh, cool. You helped out your buddy and also found out, cool, you might be sick. That's awesome. That's super awesome. That's great. And like, that's super depressing, is what I'm being super sarcastic. I'm like, that's depressing. That very depressing way to find out about that too. So she's got to deal with that, which Harold's also got to deal with. The fact is, he woke up and is like, why am I here? My gun's right here. What? Until he goes to talk to Charlene, and Charlene's like, she was scared because she's like, I didn't hear anything from you. When Beth was calling me about something, I thought she was calling about you. I was scared, but it's like, the thing she was calling about was Doug. Turns out Doug got shot and killed, and you're like, wait. And even Harold's like, wait, because I'm glad they gave us a refresher. Cause I'm like, who the hell is Doug? Oh, he's the dude Charlene was having an affair with. Right. Cool. And now Harold's worried the entire time. He's like, did I have something to do with that? So he has his buddy Lou, which I just saw that actor. Once again, just see him pop up in different things, but he was just in an episode of American Rust. Just saw him in that. It's always interesting, like, once again, that actor, I just see him playing a lot of cop stuff. Because before this, it's like, I knew him from the short-lived CBS show Instinct. He was one of the cops at the precinct. But nevertheless, Harold has him, because at first, like, Harold wanted, like, to get someone else to give him, like, well, because things are complicated, because the cop who's investigating it, because Harold made sure not to be like, oh, I'm Harold, blah, 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 blah. Could have flashed his back, could then be like, why are you here? Harold didn't say anything and left. Guy took a picture of his car, so it's like, yeah, that's going to come back. Like, Harold ain't going to be able to walk away from this, well, even if he wanted to. We'll kind of get to that in a second, but I did appreciate that Aram's like, hey, if you need anything, I'm here for you. He's like, I know, I'll come to you if need be. But obviously, like, Reddington's lines about, like, because that's why he was saying, like, should we be judged on our worst days? Because especially finding out, like, that his connection to this, that he might have pulled the trigger because he had his buddy Lou run the gun. Because at first, when there were no matches to the gun, the bullet that killed Doug in the system, so he had his buddy run the service weapon because he was missing a bullet from his clip, and so turns out it's a match. So in some haze, maybe like Harold's sick again, and like his sickness is kind of kicking back in, and he's losing time, and just in his state of like, right, I'm so angry at this guy, like even though it's been a while, his anger got the best of him, like he lost himself for a bit and got consumed with it. Or at the very least, my money is on someone setting him up. They're trying to put him in a compromised position. Wouldn't be the first time people on this team were put in a compromised position, whether it be by Reddington's heads or someone else's, but it wouldn't be the first time. So, but for Harold, he's like, the cops don't know anything, but I do, and he's saying that to Charlene. So, and he's outside the police station. So, are you going to turn yourself in because he believes himself responsible? But that's the thing, too. Reddington being Reddington, he helped Park last season. Granted, he took advantage of that. And he helped Wrestler, but he took advantage of that. He's not willing... days might be a little different with Harold, but still, like, Reddington does find the advantage in any situation. So, it could easily be a thing of he could ask something of Harold, but that's also why Harold's not going to him for help, because he's like, I don't want this to disappear. I just need to know the truth. And the thing is, you're still missing pieces to this story, so you don't know everything. So we'll have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But I'm curious to see what kind of favors this whole Derek situation is going to benefit Reddington in future. Also, what Harold's story is going to be. Like I said, that cop did get his license plate, so he will probably ask it, so why were you at the crime scene? Do you have a connection to this victim? And it's like, yeah, and that's probably going to correlate some stuff in its own regard. Because I don't know if they would necessarily immediately be able to tell from the bullet. This comes from like a service weapon associated with the police, and just like, there's a police officer, there's an FBI agent, Harold being like looking into this, so it's like that's kind of suspicious. So we'll see what ends up happening going forward from here. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.